Chapter 24. Arrival over Dust. The lunar sun hung low over Cheska Vale's fractured dome, casting long blue shadows across the cratered flats. The sleds hissed quietly as they came to a halt, their crates swaying slightly with the final shift of momentum. The ambassadors of light dismounted one by one. Ezra stepped forward first, the dust crunching beneath his boots, followed by Jonah, Naomi, Rachel, Micah, and Eve. Their cloaks fluttered faintly in the stale air, the syndicate's seal of 12 stars barely visible in the sun glare. The town stood still. Cheska Vale wasn't dead, but it looked tired. The dome seams had been patched with mismatched composites. A single solar fan array pivoted slowly atop the admin complex, tracking the sun like a tired sunflower. Children peered out from behind supply bins. A few women whispered on a rooftop. The only sound was the distant thrum of failing oxygen pumps. From the far side of the plaza, a man approached, stiff in posture, weary in gait. His jumpsuit bore a silver badge with the crescent symbol of the town council. "Steward Halen," he said, extending a hand to Ezra. "We welcome you to the Vale." Ezra took it firmly. "Thank you, Steward. We come in peace, with medical and agricultural aid, as promised." "I read the manifest," Halen said, glancing at the sleds. "Looks solid. Don't get too many deliveries this far out." "You'll find everything sealed and tagged," Micah added, already tapping at his arc to log the transfer. Halen nodded, then lowered his voice. "Appreciate the help, but just be mindful. Some folks around here aren't too fond of missionaries." Ezra gave a respectful nod. "We're not here to coerce. We're here to serve." Behind Halen, two figures emerged, one calm, the other radiating pure teenage scorn. Layla stepped forward first, tall, strong-shouldered, grease-stained from pipeline work, with a tired but welcoming face. Her hair was pulled back in a tight braid, and her eyes scanned the sleds like she was mentally mapping how to help offload. "This the syndicate team?" she said. "We heard you were coming. Looks like you brought half of Raoul with you." Jonah grinned. "Only the important half." She chuckled and offered her hand. "Layla, I help run hydro and sanitation around here." Then came the voice from beside her, a sharp note in the silence. "Oh, wow!" said Mira, arms crossed, standing half behind her sister. "You really do all wear matching cloaks. Is like that your brand or something?" Rachel raised an eyebrow. "We call it Unity." "Cute," Mira deadpanned. "Bet you all sing in harmony, too." Layla gave her a subtle nudge. Mira rolled her eyes and sighed. Ezra grinned with raised eyebrows, nodding slightly that yes, indeed, they could sing in harmony. "They're not a performance troupe," Layla murmured. "Could have fooled me," Mira muttered. Ezra smiled faintly. He'd heard this tone before, a shield of sarcasm built around something far more tender. "And you are?" Mira tilted her head, unimpressed. "I'm the entertainment director of Dome 3. I also break small machines, crash public terminals, and get blamed when the oxygen filter hiccups." Layla exhaled patiently. "She's my little sister. Mira, 14 and in the middle of a long sarcasm phase." "Wow," Mira whispered. "So many betrayals in one sentence." Rachel chuckled. "We've all been 14. "Not like me," Mira replied. "I'm a limited edition." Steward Halen cleared his throat. "I'll have some of the water techs help move the crates. If you don't mind, please refrain from discussing spiritual matters too openly. Vale is a pluralist zone. Pulse moderators have flagged some of your public content." Ezra gave a slow nod. "Understood." Mira smirked. "Ooh, are you the dangerous type? The kind that prays before dinner and smiles too much?" Layla nudged her again, more firmly this time. But Mira just looked away, squinting at the sleds. Guess you're unloading miracles now. Hope they come with instructions. Ezra's eyes softened. He wasn't sure if she was mocking them or asking for something she didn't know how to say. Jonah pulled back the seal of the largest crate, releasing a hiss of preserved air and a faint herbal scent. Vacuum-sealed medical packs, freshly synthesized bandages, and modular water purifiers neatly stacked inside. Layla whistled low. We haven't seen bandages this fresh in 2 years. What kind of textile spinner are you running back home? Organic fiber with lunar dust scrubs, Micah replied. Algae weave, sterile from thread to seal. Layla shook her head with a grin. If you're trying to make us feel primitive, it's working. We're not here to compare, Naomi said softly, gently handing her a wrapped respirator mask. We're just trying to help you breathe easier. Behind them, Steward Halen directed 2 younger men to move crates toward a side corridor of the dome. Put the purifiers in the storage vault. Medical gear goes to Clinic C. Ezra knelt by the sled's toolkit and double-checked the oxygen-stabilizing valves. The surface of Cheska Vale's main dome shimmered faintly under its solar shielding, but he could feel the thinness of the air. These domes were aging, patched, stretched beyond their intended lifespan. Your dome walls run single skin? He asked Layla as she passed with another crate. She nodded. Fiberglass over lattice. Got about 6 centimeters between air and death. We use double hulls, Ezra said. Regolith filled. Passive heat retention for the long night. Layla paused. You heat your domes with dirt? Not just dirt, as Rachel interjected, hauling a solar array case into position. Crushed regolith, fine packed, stores daytime warmth and radiates it back over the night cycle. 0 moving parts. Only thing simpler is fire. Layla blinked. You're telling me your walls remember the sun? Ezra smiled. In a way. Layla rubbed her temple. You folks are either brilliant or mythological. Can't we be both? Micah grinned. From behind them, Mira's voice cut through the moment like a razor. Yeah, well, you still look like the monks with a fashion budget. Rachel glanced back. Still watching? Still judging, Mira said. Layla gave her a patient look. You could help, Mira shrugged. I didn't ask for them to come. Ezra looked at her gently. We didn't come for those who asked. That stopped her for half a second. Then she muttered, That's either really sweet or really creepy, and disappeared behind a storage crate. The moment lingered, then Layla turned back to the crates. Your regolith walls, you think that's something you could teach us? Absolutely, Ezra said. It was taught to us freely. We give it the same way. She smiled faintly. Well then, let's make sure your gifts last through the cold. The main community center dome stood near the heart of Cheska Vale, flanked by 2 sun-faded solar towers and a struggling greenhouse with thin, yellowing vines pressed against its inner walls. The building wasn't pretty, but it was alive. Children's voices echoed faintly from within, accompanied by the hum of tired machinery and the clatter of cafeteria trays. Micah pushed open the dome's double doors, letting in a small breeze of recycled air. Jonah and Rachel followed, guiding a hover sled packed with soft crates, each marked with the seal of the syndicate capital. Layla held the door, her tone shifting now, less skeptical, more settled. This is our everything building. Schools on the west wing, clinics to the left, cafeteria in the middle. If you don't mind the smell of burnt yeast. We hold town forums here too. Used to be every cycle, now just whenever the lights stay on. We're grateful you're letting us contribute, Ezra said, stepping in behind her. The scent of freshly baked bread drifted from one of the sleds as Naomi uncovered a crate near the rear. Inside, stacked loaves, braided and golden, their warmth still preserved from the long, insulated journey. Another bin held sealed tins of dried fruit leather and packets of sweet root granola bars. Easy, portable energy for kids on limited rations. One of the cafeteria workers, an older man with a curved spine and a deep scar across his scalp, stopped mid mop and just stared. Is that cinnamon? He asked. Guatemalan, Rachel said with a smile. Real bark, not synth. The man set his mop against the wall. I haven't smelled cinnamon since before the launch. From down the hall came the stomp of running feet. A half-dozen children peeked into the loading area, eyes wide at the sight of the crates. One pointed to the Syndicate Dove symbol on the side of a flour sack. A quiet voice from the clinic hall joined them this time, from a woman wearing a surgical apron and a filtered nasal breather. Hey, were you all the ones who sent the ventilators? The crew turned. Eve stepped forward. We assisted with the shipment, yes. It was a joint effort with the Royal Medical Guild and some friends in Marinega. The woman pulled down her mask, just enough to let her voice carry. That drop saved 6 of ours, maybe more. Even a couple from our class down in Pod 3. My niece was one of them. She's breathing better than she has since her diagnosis. She looked directly at Ezra. That was you, wasn't it? Ezra glanced at his team, then back at the woman. No, he said gently. That was God. We just pushed a few crates. The woman smiled, but it wavered with emotion. Well, tell him thank you for us. Naomi quietly handed her a satchel. Inside, several more masks, a pair of sealed nebulizer kits, and a pack of wrapped paper books titled Songs for Breath and Spirit, children's hymnals printed with lyrics in both English and Spanish. I will, Ezra said, every day. The children, emboldened now, rushed in and began pointing at the supply bins. One little boy whispered to his sister, They brought bread that smells like home. Rachel leaned over to Mira, who had wandered back just far enough to lurk near the doorway. We bake some of these with kids your age back home, ovens fired with recycled oxygen. Mira arched an eyebrow. So, space bread. Fantastic. Rachel held out a smaller loaf wrapped in clear foil. This one has dried mango. Special recipe from a girl named Karina, who runs our middle grade kitchen team. Mira took it slowly. Middle grade what? Kitchen team, Rachel said. Every district has student crews. We work, we bake, we share. Mira didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. Layla watched the exchange with quiet wonder. You people show up with medicine, food, and blankets, and you still act like we're doing you the favor. Ezra placed one more crate in the center of the room and looked around the dome. You let us serve, he said. That is the highest honor there is. The crates kept coming, pulled from the sleds like blessings unpacked. Naomi and Rachel laid out a small display near the cafeteria. Brightly labeled bins filled with school kits, storybooks, writing tablets, colored wax styluses, and bundles of string-bound notepads with tiny pressed flowers laminated on the covers. One smaller crate, stamped with a red F and a stylized cherry stem, caught the eye of a wiry boy near the front of the crowd. He whispered, Are those cherries? Jonah grinned. Freeze-dried, no pits, all flavor, straight from the groves of the Judah district. Rachel pried open the lid and offered a palmful. The boy reached out slowly, almost reverently, before scooping a handful and popping them into his mouth. His eyes widened. They crunch, and then they melt. The other kids closed in, hands out, eyes shining. Rachel laughed and waved them forward. All right, gently. There's more where that came from. One girl clutched a foil pouch to her chest like a treasure. Another began unwrapping a stylus set, holding the shimmering colors up to the dome's inner lights. In the corner, Mira leaned against a support beam, quietly munching her mango bread and watching her world tilt by degrees. Ezra knelt beside one of the crates, double-checking a manifest sheet, while a boy with curly brown hair lingered nearby, holding a pouch of cherries and glancing from the food to the faces. You like them? Ezra asked. The boy nodded. I never had anything that tasted like this. Ezra smiled. They're a favorite with the kids back home. We grow them on terraces, built into the dome edge. The plants arch up like little trees. They call it the cherry chapel because it smells so good when they bloom. The boy stared at him. You grow food in church? Ezra chuckled. Sometimes. Sometimes we worship where the fruit is. Other times, the fruit grows where we worship. The boy hesitated, then said, My grandfather had a book, black cover, little gold cross on it. He used to read it from it before bed. He said it made his heart feel like music. But I don't remember the words. We didn't see him much before we came up. Ezra's expression softened. Was he on the elevator with you? The boy shook his head. No, we came in a big group, maybe 40 of us, families. Some real big ones. Everyone trying to get away from the storms down there. They said the space up here was cleaner, easier to breathe. Naomi joined them, holding a folded stack of small wool blankets. What's your name? Pax, the boy said, like the peace word. Naomi smiled. That's a strong name. People say I talk too much, Pax added quickly, as if to offset the compliment. I think that's what peace is, Ezra said. Telling the truth without fear. Pax popped another cherry into his mouth. I like you guys. You don't yell, even when people here act weird. We don't need to yell, Naomi said. The light speaks for itself. Behind him, 3 more children approached, each lingering in their own way, just close enough to listen. Ezra recognized the pattern. When the seed is cast, it always draws different kinds of soil. One was a thin girl with sharp eyes and tightly braided hair. She picked at a book cover and whispered questions to herself, too quiet to be heard. Her hands moved constantly, fidgeting, fixing, adjusting the seams of her sleeves. Another was a quiet, round-faced boy who hovered near the food crates, touching things and then drawing his hand back like he'd get in trouble. And the last, a boy about Mira's age, leaned back against the dome wall, watching the ambassadors with the careful squint of someone already calculating what might go wrong. Ezra watched them carefully. One listened, but fear bound her fingers. One reached, but shame pulled him back. One judged that moment before the seed even hit the ground. And Pax crunched cherries and listened with his whole face. Ezra looked over to Naomi. 4 from the elevator? She nodded. All from the same transport manifest. Different families, different stories. Jonah passed behind them with a stack of stylus refills. Some seeds fall on stones, some among thorns. Some get snatched up before they land. Ezra looked back at Pax, who was now explaining cherry farming to the other kids with wild, inaccurate hand gestures. And some, Ezra said, will bloom 100-fold. The last of the crates were moved into place, and for the first time in hours, the community center fell into a lull. The children had been guided back toward the school wing, except for a few who lingered around the food crates, sneaking second helpings of cherries with sticky fingers and guilty smiles. Micah leaned against the cafeteria wall, sipping from a pouch of cooled barley tea, when a short woman in a faded maintenance jacket stepped forward. Her expression was neutral, but her eyes were sharp. You really live without pulse? The room quieted just a little more. Micah nodded slowly. We have our own internal network, arc-based, closed-looped. The woman folded her arms. So you're off-grid. Intentionally, Rachel said, joining him. Not because we fear technology, but because we're careful with it. Another man, tall, older, with an artificial knee joint and the posture of someone who once served somewhere official, spoke up from the bench near the storage hall. That makes some people nervous, especially the kids. Ezra turned toward him. Because of what they think we're hiding? The man shrugged. Because control looks a lot like secrecy. Ezra nodded. Understandable. But if we were trying to control people, we wouldn't be here. We'd stay behind our walls, keep our food, our medicine, our silence. Layla, standing nearby, added quietly, "You shared everything, even the cherry bread." Another voice chimed in, this one from a teenage girl seated near the admin terminal bank. "My cousin says you make your women cover their heads and stay silent. That's true, right? That's why you sent your men to talk to us?" Eve laughed gently. "I chose to be here. So did Rachel and Naomi. We don't silence women. We raise them up to speak with wisdom." "But you don't let them preach," the girl pressed. Rachel spoke calmly. "We follow the scriptures. We believe teaching authority in the church belongs to men. But every one of us has taught, testified, written, sung, and shared the gospel in 100 ways." Eve added, "Submission to Christ isn't the same thing as silence. It's strength under purpose." A hush followed, not confrontational, just absorbing. From the far end of the room, Pax's voice piped up, still chewing cherries. "You don't look like the bad kind of quiet." There were a few chuckles. The girl near the admin terminal leaned back in her chair, frowning thoughtfully. Then she tapped her screen and paused. "Strange," she muttered. "I was trying to look up your home district on Pulse, the old one. It says unavailable to access your level." Micah walked over slowly. "May I?" She turned the screen toward him. Sure enough, the Pulse search bar flickered faintly, its usual blue glow edged now in red. A notification blinked at the bottom. "This content has been withheld due to community moderation standards. Please contact your ethics rep for clarification." Micah tapped a few more queries. Syndicate Agriculture, Regolith Thermal Domes, Cherry Chapel, each one yielding similar results. Limited access, ethics queue, content flagged. "I've seen this before," he said quietly. "They're not just censoring theology. They're censoring culture, identity." "Why?" Layla asked. "Because it's contagious," Ezra answered. "Peace is powerful, faith even more so." A third adult, quiet until now, stepped forward from the clinic corridor. Her jumpsuit bore a Pulse Mod insignia, her face tight with restrained concern. "They're monitoring us even now," she said. "Anything typed into the public terminals is cached, mirrored, and fed into language modeling filters. Keywords get flagged. Sin, salvation, discipline, repent." She looked at the ambassadors. "You use those words." "We do," Naomi said, "but not to shame people, to free them." The mod tech's expression softened. "I've been here for 5 years. I've seen a lot of systems come and go, but I've never seen one that gives everything away and asks nothing in return." Micah gestured to the center of the room. "That's because we're not building a system. We're building a kingdom." One of the older men scoffed gently. "Kingdoms don't last up here. Gravity's too light. Power shifts too fast." Ezra smiled faintly. "Then it's a good thing our king isn't from here." Later, after the crowd dispersed and the crates were sorted, the ambassadors found themselves in a quiet alcove just off the clinic wing, a faded mural of Earth's continents wrapping the wall above a set of dim terminal booths. One of the local children had been ushered off to dinner or evening chores, though a few lingered in the hall with their noses pressed to the windows of the cherry crate. Micah pulled up his arc and frowned immediately. "Okay, this isn't normal." "What is it?" Rachel asked, wiping her hands on a cloth and peering over his shoulder. "Our follower count just jumped, like 52 new accounts from this dome in the last hour." "Curious locals?" Naomi guessed. Micah shook his head. "No, half of them are already suspended." He spun the arc so they could see the alert log. "Pulse system notice. Following activity violates ethic heuristics. Account restricted. Reason, associative behavior with flagged religious identity. Ethics tag C7, conversion risk." Rachel's brow furrowed. "Conversion risk? That's a category now?" Micah tapped deeper. "Apparently so. They've got this new tagging structure. Saw it start trickling in back at Marinega. It used to only affect flagged content, but now they're pre-flagging people for who they interact with." Eve appeared beside them, holding a small tray of leftover bread. "So just talking to us gets you blacklisted?" Micah nodded. "Seems so." Ezra stepped in from the corridor. "They've stopped pretending it's about harm prevention. It's control." Jonah was already typing. I'm going to post a quick encouragement, just something light. He dictated aloud as he typed. Even here, in the dust and the dark, the light knows your name. He has not forgotten about you. He tapped upload. A second passed, then the pulse reply flickered. Your content is undergoing ethics review and is temporarily unavailable in your current region. Micah muttered. Predictable. Rachel opened her own arc. Her message inbox was blinking furiously. Dozens of small, desperate notes. She read one aloud. Is it true you grow food in schools? What does it mean when you say kingdom? Are you recruiting kids? Another. My uncle says you're a cult. Are you brainwashing people? I don't care. Please send me whatever you believe. Just send it fast. Ezra read over her shoulder. They're starving. But not for cherries, Naomi whispered. Micah's eyes flicked to the terminal booths. I wonder how many of these have been scrubbed already. Cached messages, full message deletion, ghost bans. This place feels like a glass house with soundproof walls. Eve lowered her voice. So what do we do? Ezra looked around the room, slow and steady. We stay visible, stay available. We speak softly, but we don't stop speaking. Ezra set his arc on the table, like it was a relic from another age. Funny. They think we're dangerous because we talk about peace and purity and self-control. They don't fear us, Ezra said. They fear what we carry, and they should. Naomi leaned against the mural, her finger tracing the faded shape of Africa. What happens when all our messages get blocked? We go back to feet and faces, Ezra said. Back to mouths and meals. That's how the church started. That's how we go forward. A beat passed. The angel said quietly, We still have the bread. Ezra nodded. We still have the name. Outside the alcove, Mira watched from the edge of the hallway, her arms crossed, a stylus spinning restlessly in her fingers. She hadn't said anything since the cherries. But when Jonah looked her way, she met his eyes, not smiling, not smirking, just thinking. And that, for now, was enough. The lunar night was creeping in. Long shadows stretched across Cheska Vale, dimming the corridors and outer courts, until only the dull glow of emergency lights blinked along the walkway edges. The ambassadors had set camp on a ledge near the western rim of the dome. Simple mats, rolled blankets, and a small crate converted into a table with a thermos of chicory root tea at the center. Ezra sat quietly, rereading a passage on his arc, while Jonah adjusted a heating filament beside the water jug. The others had scattered. Eve checking on supplies, Naomi and Rachel speaking softly near the perimeter. That's when he saw him, a lone figure approaching from the shadows beyond the greenhouse ridge. He walked slow, not sneaking, but not wanting to be noticed either. Jonah stood, alert but open. Evening! The man raised one hand, palm out. Not here for trouble. Ezra stepped forward. You're welcome at our fire. The man nodded, drawing closer. Dust clung to the folds of his jumpsuit. His eyes were dark, sullen from years of grief, but not entirely dim. I'm Tolen, he said. I live over in Pod 6. We met once, years ago, at a trade dock outside of Marinega. I don't expect you to remember. Ezra smiled. I don't, but I'm glad you came. Tolen looked down at the ground between them. I've been watching. All day. You serve. You don't charge. You let our kids eat first. He looked back up. That's not normal up here. Jonah gestured to the crate. Sit if you like. Tolen sat. My wife passed 4 winters ago, he said after a pause. Oxygen collapse in a faulty chamber. 2 kids since then. Girls 10, boys 7. Work patching welds and vent filters. He hesitated. I never wanted to raise them on stories I didn't believe. I wasn't sure what was real anymore. But today, it felt different. Ezra folded his hands. What are you asking, Tolen? The man looked up, his voice cracked. Is this Jesus real? A hush fell over the camp, like the air itself was listening. Ezra sat beside him, slow and gentle. Yes, he said, he's real. He's alive. He's not just an idea or a culture or a story meant to make you good. He's a person, a king, a savior, and he knows your name. Jonah added, he knew it when you were standing in the shadows. He knows your children's names, too. Tolen pressed his hands together, his voice barely audible. I want to know him. I want something my kids can hold on to, something I'm not ashamed to give them. Ezra reached inside a pack and pulled out a sealed folio wrapped in clear lunar cloth. He opened it slowly. Inside was a book, thin as breath, folded perfectly, each page shimmering faintly even in the low light. The text glowed softly in the darkness, not by power, but by design, a property of the ink itself, engineered to reflect and amplify even the faintest photon. The cover bore no ornamentation except for a cross etched in reflective foil. This, Ezra said, was printed in the capital with paper made from a lunar fiber, micro-bonded silica thread. It's tear-proof, fireproof, waterproof. They say you can't even bend a corner without it snapping back. Tolen stared at it like it might disappear if he blinked. We made this paper, Ezra continued, because the word deserves a body as endearing as the truth it holds. These are rare, meant for those who ask not just out of curiosity, but out of hunger. Tolen took the Bible slowly, reverently. His fingers trembled as he turned the first page. I can read it in the dark. Ezra smiled. So can your children. Tolen's voice cracked. Can you show me how to start? Ezra placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll start together. Jonah knelt beside them, and the three bowed their heads, not for performance, not for spectacle, but because the dust on the moon was holy ground tonight. Ezra spoke softly. Father, we thank you for a heart that seeks and a word that speaks. We ask that you meet Tolen as he is, where he is, and that your son be as real to him tonight as the stars above. And the night, for all its cold and silence, suddenly felt full. The sun was barely rising above the rim of Cheska Vale when the ambassadors began reloading their empty sleds. The crates that once held medicine, books, and bread now sat open and hollow, the cargo scattered like seeds across the town. Ezra was tightening his strap when Steward Halen approached, his face unusually pale. I wouldn't normally say anything, he began, but something's changed. Ezra looked up. Go on. Halen glanced over his shoulder, lowering his voice. A Marinega official passed through 2 days ago. Not the usual quarterly check-in. This one was armed, clean uniform, heavy boots. Military? Jonah asked, standing nearby. Didn't say, but he asked about gatherings. Halen's eyes flicked to the community center. Said your kind were showing up in places you hadn't before. Called you destabilizing agents of identity distortion. Friendly, Micah muttered under his breath. Halen ignored us. He told us we were obligated to report any future interactions, especially anything involving kids or unsanctioned ideology exchanges. Ezra raised an eyebrow. That's how they worded it? Unsanctioned ideology exchange, Halen repeated. He left behind one of those. He pointed toward the Pulse terminal kiosk near the supply depot. The crew approached slowly. A soft blue glow lit the screen, pulsing gently. A banner stretched across the top. unskippable and motion-sensitive. Community harmony above religious division. Unified thought is the foundation of lunar peace. This facility participates in open atmosphere moderation protocol. Below the banner, their own syndicate crest had been grayed out, dimmed, flickering under the heading Foreign Civic Entity, Ethically Non-Compliant. Rachel's expression hardened. They're not just warning people, they're redefining faith as conflict. Eve read the smaller text aloud. Visitors are welcome to share stories, not systems. Stories, Jonah echoed. Not systems. Not salvation. Just sentiment. They want hearts without roots, Naomi said. Ezra stepped back from the screen. This was never going to be easy. Jonah tightened the last strap on the sled. Next time we come, it won't be this quiet, Rachel finished. The crew fell silent for a moment. From the far side of the plaza, Mira stood on the dome steps, arms crossed as always. But she wasn't smirking. She was watching the pulse terminal with a strange expression, half suspicion, half disappointment. Layla stepped up beside her, slipping a hand around her shoulders. Mira didn't move away. Ezra looked out at the horizon. The earth was rising again, brighter than the banners, higher than the fears. We'll be back, he said. Not as a threat, not as a boast, just as a promise. The sleds were loaded. The camp rolled up. Dust coiled gently underfoot as the ambassadors prepared to leave Cheska Vale behind. Ezra secured the last of the gear, while Naomi handed out the final ration satchels to the center staff. The town had grown quieter in the morning light, not just asleep, just reflective. Eyes from the shaded doorways followed their movements. A few tentative waves came from the children still clinging to paper notebooks and foil-wrapped sheets. Near the edge of the community dome, just past the admin walkway, Mira stood alone. She didn't call out, didn't wave, just waited. Arms crossed, expression unreadable. As Ezra passed within earshot, she stepped forward. Hey. He turned. Mira? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into the pouch at her side and pulled out something small, wrapped in a bit of repurposed packing foil, folded with care. She held it out without explanation. Ezra accepted the bundle and unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a cross, hand-fashioned from scrap wire and bits of dome frame alloy, crude but balanced. The edges had been smoothed, the center wrapped with a tiny violet thread, the kind used to tie irrigation systems in the greenhouse. I didn't make it for you, Mira said flatly. I made it because I couldn't stop thinking about it. Ezra looked up. Her eyes were glassy but defiant. My sister talks like she's already part of your world, she added. She wants to come to your garden dome thing. Says she's going to help build prayer rooms. We'd welcome her, Ezra said. Mira shook her head. Yeah, I know. That's the problem. A beat passed. She stepped back, folding her arms again. I don't want to be someone's project. Ezra nodded slowly, slipping the cross into a pouch on his cloak. You're not, he said. You're someone's daughter. That cracked her composure just a little. She looked away. Whatever, she muttered. You should go before your rail shuts down. Ezra took a few steps toward the sled, then turned back. Thank you for the gift, Mira shrugged. As the sleds hummed to laugh and rolled down the departure corridor, Rachel glanced over her shoulder. She's still watching. Ezra looked back, too. Mira hadn't moved, just stood there, small and stubborn, but no longer mocking. Jonah spoke quietly. That girl's heart is hard ground. Ezra smiled faintly. Then she's in good company. So was mine. The dome faded behind them as the corridor curved toward the outer launch point. Above, the earth rose again, brilliant, round, alive. In his pocket, a scrap metal cross caught the faintest glint of that light.